Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior and accomplished sales practitioner from British Columbia, Canada, Priya Sachdev. Priya, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ashutosh.
Priya is the founder and chief sales practitioner of Sales Scalability. So, Priya, let's get straight into sales. Tell me a little bit about your journey in brief and what inspired you to enter the world of sales and business consulting.
Sure. It's been a long journey, so I'll have to scratch my head to think about where did it begin.
Mhm.
But I think sales was a default option. It wasn't like I chose to be in sales, which is pretty much how a lot of people get into sales.
Mm.
It was an option that presented itself to me, and I thought, okay, let me try this, and I've never looked back. So, started with selling electronic typewriters, fax machines, multifunction devices,
Mm.
moved on to selling beauty products, and then got into the space of what used to be called sales training, really.
Mhm.
And this was in India with a company called NIS Sparta.
Mhm.
And a lot of people in India, if they're listening to this, would recognize that brand. And for the international audience, we were then the partners to Hathwit, which
Mm.
is spin selling.
Yeah.
And so that's really how I got into sales consulting
Mm.
because I became a trainer because I
Mm.
was in sales. And so it
Mm.
was a absolute kind of a natural progression there.
Amazing.
And I loved what I was doing. And I thought I could bring more value than just being in sales, even though I still sell and I have a sales target and I've had it for, I say, 115 quarters and let people do the maths.
Wow.
Um, but I still sell and I love doing that as well. But been
Fantastic.
consulting since 2000. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, you describe yourself as a sales practitioner.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about what you mean by sales practitioner in terms of a business, say, for example.
Sure. So, there are few people who used to sell and then got into consulting and now just do that.
Mm.
I practice sales.
Mm.
Like I sell every day. I am selling. Today I sent out two proposals and responded to an RFI. So the reason I say practitioner is because I learned this from my mentor, Bob Miller,
Mhm.
who used to say that I'm not sitting on a pedestal. It's not like I know sales like nobody else does.
Mm.
I just know sales because I sell every day.
Right.
I have a 75% failure rate, but I have a 25% win rate, which is
Mm.
very good in
Absolutely.
B2B complex sales.
Mm. Mm.
So that's why practitioner, and that's really what it means for businesses as well. That, there are war wounds on this chest that I share with their salespeople. And when I go in, I think salesperson first. Because, a lot of times we are thinking sales manager first or sales leader first.
Yeah.
But the actual execution is being done by the salespeople on the ground. And because I still work there, I'm thinking salesperson first when I do consulting as well.
Well said. Well said. And based on all your experience of 115 quarters, as you said, what are some of the biggest mistakes you have seen businesses make when trying to scale their sales operations?
They don't strategically think about sales.
Mhm.
It's my biggest rant and pet peeve.
Mm.
In fact, I keep saying this is my personal mission in life. I want businesses and business owners to recognize the strategic importance of sales.
Mhm.
If we look at it today and we think about why businesses fail, we have data from startups.
Mm.
And it says the top reason why businesses fail is because they ran out of money. To me, that's a sales problem. How did
Right.
you run out of money?
Correct.
You weren't selling enough, right?
Mm.
So, to me, that's the biggest challenge. We think, and when businesses start, the startup founders think, I will hire an IT guy, I will hire a CTO, I will hire a product guy. Sales, oh, I can do that.
Mm.
Sure, you can, but you need to give it a seat on the table.
Right.
Um, yeah.
That's such an important statement you've just made. And my next question, Priya, is what's the difference between growing a business and truly scaling it?
Yeah. So see, scaling a business is exponential growth.
Mm,
Growing a business, I can grow a business by 1%, 2%, and be happy with that it's growing.
mm,
And I can today look at different metrics for growth. I may say, oh, I want to grow my customer base, even if my revenue doesn't grow.
mm,
Or I just want to grow my bottom line and I don't want to worry about top line. And
mm,
that's fair. But when you start talking about scale, then it's completely changing the paradigm, right? When
mm,
I'm thinking scale, I'm thinking of going into markets I haven't been. I'm thinking about reaching out to customers I have never done.
mm,
So it's market development, product development, geographic development. And that requires a different kind of strategic thinking, a different kind of ecosystem
mm,
to support the organization, right? So that's why thinking just growth and thinking scalability
mm,
require kind of different, um, what's the better word to use? Strategic intent for them.
Well said. So, I was speaking to somebody the other day, and they said that while storytelling is important in marketing, to
Mhm,
be a good sales practitioner, to use your term, storytelling is very important for sales. I
mhm.
wanted to ask you, what role does storytelling play in sales, and how can businesses harness this effectively?
Yeah, I think this is the only reason why AI will never have my job.
Okay.
Because, um, see, people love stories.
Yeah.
Think about how did we learn as kids? We learned a lot of our value system through stories. We were told what happens when, you're a bad boy or a bad girl and you're not doing the things right, or you're not washing your hands, or you're not studying on time. And we learned our values through
Mm.
stories.
Yeah.
We've learned our religious practices through stories.
Correct.
We've built our biases through stories. So, who are we if we are not just stories,
Mm.
right? You and me are telling a story today on this podcast.
Correct.
So, I think from a human dimension, storytelling is always important and will be important.
Mm.
And that's one thing that we can't teach linear technology to do well.
Mm.
So I think storytelling is very, very important. Sometimes we call it story selling
Mm.
because it's not just telling a story, but it's using the story to influence and persuade people in sales as well. I only think that the stories should not be made up. They shouldn't be folklore.
Correct.
There has to be some basis and objective criteria under the story when we think about storytelling in sales. And what I mean by that is don't make up the value you can bring,
Right.
have the data behind it.
Mm.
And then certainly the emotion gets communicated through the story.
Mm.
And people buy stories
Absolutely.
every day.
Absolutely. Well said. And you just a few minutes back commented that AI would never take your job. But I want
Yeah.
to ask you, what is your view on the role of AI and automation in sales today? And are businesses leveraging AI effectively?
And I want to start from your last question first. Are businesses leveraging it effectively? I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of chaos around it right now,
Mm.
where some of us are early adopters and some of us want to wait and watch to see where it goes.
Sure.
So there are different levels of maturity there.
Mm.
Um, I think AI is a great tool. It's a tool like a calculator or my mobile phone. When it happened to our world, we didn't know what to do, but now we can't live without it, and it's become such an integral part of everything.
Correct.
So I think in sales, there is a lot of administrative grunt work we've done, and
Mm.
it takes away a lot of our time, moving us away from being with our clients where
Mm.
I can bring the best return on my time.
Mm.
So I see and I use AI for a lot of that. I try and give it all the grunt work that I
Mm,
don't
mm,
like doing,
mm,
so that I can do what I like doing, which is
mm.
being in front of my clients and having customer conversations.
Very
So
interesting.
I think there is a long way to go on this journey on how do we leverage AI as an advantage to augment what we do in sales.
Great response. But a follow-up question for you, Priya, is that with digital transformation reshaping so many industries,
Mhm.
how should sales teams adapt their strategies to stay ahead?
Sell digitally.
Yeah.
That's our biggest challenge. In fact, just today morning, I was on a conversation with someone and he was saying, I am tired of telling my people to go check out LinkedIn on a regular basis or engage on that platform. And, we've never had to do that behavior in the past.
Mm,
We would just pick our bags and leave home, and we'd be going out and meeting clients, and
mm,
it comes naturally to us.
mm,
But now I think as we think about digital transformation, a couple of things are changing.
mm,
One is more people getting involved in the buying decision to be made
mm.
because we have tools to collaborate. So it's
Correct.
easy to bring in more people. And also, no one person wants to stand there and say, I said it, so go ahead and do it. We are not
Mm,
autocratic anymore, right? We are matrix
mm,
organizations.
mm,
So, digital means you have an ability to engage with more people. And if you're not doing that,
mm,
you're getting left behind.
mm.
Digital also means that we have tools to use.
Right.
Like I use a lot of videos in my emails. So instead of sending people text emails, I would send them a video,
Mm,
give them a narrative around what I'm sending them because I know I'm not walking the corridors anymore.
mm.
So digital also gives us a lot of tools that we can use to our advantage.
Right.
I think salespeople are learning,
Mm,
uh, not as fast as we would like it.
mhm.
We keep saying our customers are getting smarter at buying than our sellers are getting at selling. So we're playing a bit of a catch-up game there, but we'll be there soon.
Yeah, I'm sure. The other, uh, you know, little comment I picked up when I was preparing for my conversation with you was sales enablement.
Mhm.
What is the concept of sales enablement and why is it a game changer for businesses?
Yeah. So see, if you look at the sales organization,
Hmm,
classically we had a sales leader, we had sales managers, and then we had salespeople.
hmm,
And everybody's running, chasing a quota and a target. And
hmm,
now there are so many other elements that come into play. Like you need your pricing strategy right, you need your product strategy right, you need to ensure quality and not just quantity in what you're doing. And there used to be no one person or one function
hmm,
would play that role. And we see that sales enablement is really that function.
hmm,
So it's the quality and assurance function for sales,
hmm.
right? So if there was a sales sigma, like a Six Sigma to give,
Yeah.
sales enablement would be enabling people to follow systems and processes in a manner that we could get that Six Sigma.
Hmm, hmm,
So I think that's the way to look at sales enablement. And today we say it's not just sales enablement, we are moving to revenue enablement
hmm,
because we are seeing sales and marketing coming together under one leadership more
hmm.
and more. And our focus is not just looking at sales, but looking more broadly in terms of revenue generation.
Very interesting.
So sales enablement is becoming revenue enablement now.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more on how sales, marketing, and enablement work together to create a seamless growth strategy.
Yeah. So I would say they are like three different dimensions of customer acquisition and engagement in an organization.
Hmm,
So if I were to look at, like when we look at our Army, Air Force, and Navy,
hmm,
we are picking up and building our skills around all the different ways in which we can engage. And I don't like talking about sales like being at war,
hmm,
but having said that, it's a good metaphor because
Mm,
strategy is something we've learned from there.
mm,
Um, so if you think about that from a perspective where marketing goes in and creates a market for us to have a conversation with our ideal customer profile,
mm,
sales then goes in and ensures that conversation is being executed,
mm,
right? And enablement is ensuring that we have the right tools, the right processes, and the right people
mm,
when we show up to our clients.
mm,
And in fact, there is another function that's getting added to that ecosystem, which is customer success.
mm.
And we are seeing more and more leaders pulling in that customer success engine to sit under that
Yeah,
ecosystem as well,
yeah.
because especially in our SaaS world, right? It's not just sales or marketing,
Mm,
but a lot of the sales happens through customer success, which is to say, you'd buy a license. Are you using it? And are
mm,
you using it well enough to buy more and renew
mm.
and keep
Very
working with us. So
very
I think
interesting.
customer success is also coming into that role and
Absolutely.
ecosystem
And since
now.
you've spoken about customer success, tell me a
Mhm.
little bit more about your perspective on customer experience or CX. They say it's going to be a $1 trillion business in the next 10 years.
Yeah, well, I think it already should be a $1 trillion business.
Hmm.
I think we are just calling it by different names
Yeah.
and nomenclature
Mm,
because as we see businesses and brands
mm,
grow, we know one thing that's happened since we've gone digital,
mm,
competition has increased.
mm,
So if I'm not taking care of the customer experience, I'm going to lose my customer.
mm,
So it's inevitable because gone are the days where I sat in a small geography
mm,
and my customer had no choice or had limited choice and they would work with me. Today,
mm.
my customer can be sitting here with me in Penticton, British Columbia, and working with you in India because the barriers are reduced,
Correct.
if not completely taken away. So I
Mm,
think customer experience always has been important.
mm,
I think we are just calling it by different names today
mm,
because specifically in our SaaS world,
mm.
like I said, customer success would sit under customer experience,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Correct. Well said. I have time for three more questions for you. Uh,
Sure.
you advocate for ageism, awareness, and diversity in sales.
Mhm.
What sparked your passion for these causes, and how do you connect these to your work?
I think I sparked the reason I talk about them.
Okay.
Being a woman in sales, I do a lot of workshops where I'm training a team of only men. I'm happy to report that, yes, I have started seeing some women come into the room.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's still a minority.
Mm,
And that's what triggered the whole diversity conversation for me. It's
mm.
close to home.
Yeah,
Like, where are the women? Why don't we
absolutely.
have more women in sales? And
Mm.
that's where I picked it up. And then
Okay.
I started getting old and I moved to the other side of 50. And I realized that there is a bias there where people think,
Mm.
oh, she's too old to do it.
Mm.
And I just want to take up that challenge and talk about it.
Absolutely.
So I was saying I'm not anti-aging, I am pro-aging. I'm saying I could be 55, which I am, but that doesn't mean I can't do a lot of the other things
Correct.
like learning technology. A lot of people think, oh, old world people, certainly old at heart,
Mm.
uh, but that doesn't mean my brain's not sharp enough to do
Absolutely.
that. And
Mm.
I found that that's not just my problem, it's a problem that a lot of people in the communities are feeling
Mm.
because today, if you were to apply for a job, and I don't wish it on anyone that you would need to, but people look at your date of birth on your resume and make a decision to say, should I be hiring you when you're so close to retirement,
Yeah.
or because of your age, you don't want to travel enough and
Mm.
you're going to ask me to pay you business class? And while I can get a younger person who's more agile and able to run around and do what I need them to do. So just building awareness around that. I
Great
just think
response.
some of these things need a voice.
Yeah.
I have a loud one, so I'm just using it to my advantage.
Well said. Well said. And hopefully, I'll speak to you again in 5 years' time, and you'll still be doing the same thing, I'm sure, and even better.
Absolutely. And so will you.
Absolutely. So, two more questions for you. Priya, you worked with global B2B clients. How
Mhm.
do cultural differences impact sales approaches in different markets?
Yeah, great point. So I think firstly, we have to realize and acknowledge that culture is reality.
Hmm.
And, culture is built based on just the geographic conditions that we live in
Hmm.
and the practices we've had over a period of time. So
Hmm.
when people say, no, we are global now and there is no divide, I don't think I agree with that.
Hmm.
I grew up in India. I lived in India for the biggest chunk of my life. And now I live in Canada. And I can tell you what I thought would be living in Canada to actually living in Canada is very different.
Hmm.
So I just feel that firstly, we need to acknowledge that there are cultural nuances that play out in each marketplace.
Hmm.
And it's good to be aware about that.
Hmm.
And I think B2B organizations have done this. Some of them have done that really well
Hmm.
because when they work with the local leadership and the leadership has a seat on the table,
Hmm.
they are able to build strategies for each of those local markets to at least, the last mile that they
Hmm.
can.
Hmm.
And then they give freedom to the local markets to do the rest.
Hmm.
Um, some organizations may have grown up too fast, and the challenge is that they haven't found the leadership they could have on the table,
Hmm.
bring that strategic thinking there,
Hmm.
and which is where the consulting companies and the consulting fraternity plays a great role in
Right.
that space, right?
Right.
Because we can bridge that gap
Hmm.
by helping them understand. So I right now work with a lot of clients in North America
Hmm.
who have aspirations to be in India, and talking to them about how that market is different
Hmm.
versus the market that they are used to here, and
Yep.
should they go direct or should they work with a channel, and having that kind of a thinking. And I think we are getting better at this because we are becoming global and we are thinking like that.
Hmm.
But yes, I think there are cultural nuances that play out in every region
Correct.
that we are. And
Correct.
I can tell you, it's not even across a border, right? Like I know in India, North India and South India, there will be
Correct.
differences. I live in Canada, across our provinces, in the West Coast to East Coast, there are differences.
Hmm.
So I think culture is not
Yeah.
like defined by the borders of our countries,
Yeah.
but it is driven more by the regions and the
Well
geographic
said.
spread we have.
Absolutely. And Priya, my last question to you. If you were to boil your sales philosophy down to three core principles, what would they be?
Oh, I haven't really thought as much about three, but I have just one of them
Yeah.
that I really talk about, and
Hmm.
that is gain mind share, get wallet share.
Hmm.
What I mean by that is a lot of people think about sales being this transactional, short term thing that I need to go after to achieve targets. And
Hmm.
it's okay to do that. We are business
Yeah.
organizations. But the point is, if you don't get the mind share of your customer,
Hmm.
you're going to struggle with wallet share.
Hmm.
However, if you go gain mind share,
Hmm.
you will get wallet share.
Well said.
So that's been my philosophy. I'm
Fantastic.
always focused on the experience that
Hmm.
I can create and gain the mind share, and then the wallet share will happen.
Amazing. And on that last bit of sales mantra, which you said gain mind share and get wallet share, thank you, Priya, for speaking to me about your journey. I think we covered some fascinating ground on sales. We talked about the definition of a sales practitioner, some of the mistakes businesses make. I was amazed to learn how you differentiate between growing and scaling. You spoke about technology and AI, and then you spoke about sales enablement. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.